Hey, everybody, welcome back to Great Mondays Radio. There is major shifts happening in the employment market, and I don't think that we have been thinking about it hard enough. At least I can tell you that I haven't been thinking about it hard enough, which is why I have brought on my good friend and very thoughtful expert, Rikki Goldenberg. She is an ICF certified executive leadership and career coach. And in fact, Rikki wrote a case study that is in my book. And it is one of my favorite case studies. It was from when she was at Veriday, which then got acquired by McKinsey. And she was an associate. What was your role there? Associate consultant or
I
something
think I was
like
an
that?
associate director.
Associate
Could mean
director.
anything.
It could, that's right. Some sort of technician of some sort. But she has been in and around a lot of large organizations, a background in, I would say, kind of overarching creative program direction, thinking about how this kind of creative work gets done and more. So Rikki is here. She has some thoughts. She has expressed some um, maybe some concern or worry or observation about how things are changing in the employment market and what it means that we are now in an employer's market and what that is, what kind of behavior that's leading to. So, all that, Rikki Goldenberg, welcome to Great Mondays Radio. Thanks for coming on. It is amazing to reconnect with you.
So fun. Here I am. I can see the
Yay!
book behind you. I'm like, I'm in that book.
You're in that book. You are in that book.
And here I am in
Yes,
real life.
we talked about, so you had written about fika
Mm-hmm.
in the book. Maybe we can just start with that since it's still so interesting and relevant.
Also,
If,
it's really relevant because I think I should tell you right now, I have a fika hold in my own calendar.
oh, that's so good.
It's
That's
in
good.
there
All right.
right now. I'm not
Bring for
BSing
those
you.
just a couple people that haven't that are listening that haven't read the entire book cover to cover.
How dare
Let's
they?
tell them what fika is, and we'll give some context just to at least connect the dots for people.
I will. So way back when I worked for an organization called Veriday, formerly Ergonomy Design, and they are based in Stockholm in Sweden before they were acquired by McKinsey. And one of the Swedish cultural traditions is something called fika, which is, oh, what does it translate to? Little break? I don't know. Don't quote me on that. No one look that up and then come at me. But basically, in the mid-morning, usually around 11, you would step away from your desk and you'd go into the kitchen and you'd grab a little coffee, maybe a little treat, little snack, and you would gab for a few minutes for, 10, 15, even 30 minutes. And when you're in Sweden, you kind of do it around 11. You might do it again in the kind of mid-afternoon when you're hitting that caffeine slump.
Hmm.
And it's such a beautiful tradition, especially in a place like Veriday or other creative organizations. It was this incredible opportunity. You'd step away from your desk. You might still be kind of marinating on a problem or something that you wanted to work on, or you wanted to write, or you wanted to craft, and you kind of needed to step away and let it marinate. And so you do that while drinking copious amounts of caffeine, and you'd start chatting with someone who's maybe working on something else. And it's just this really, you don't also have to talk about work. You can just have a little cup of coffee and chat.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a lovely little hang. And I seriously do. In my calendar, I will get alerts and it comes up actually in about 15 minutes. I'm gonna get an alert that says, "Hey, it's time for you to have your own little private fika." And I do.
So I love that, and I'm gonna read. It is just two short paragraphs. So I'm gonna read from the book, which I have not ever done on the show
Oh
before.
my
But
goodness.
design and innovation consultancy Veriday has been working out of a converted church in a suburb of Stockholm for decades. How are they going to bring years of a unique Swedish-based culture to their new office in downtown Manhattan? Rikki Goldenberg, Associate Director of Project Management, there you go, you're Associate Director
That's
at
what it
Veriday,
was.
observes that without the physical artifacts, it's up to the people. And so, with no charming church windows to remind American employees of its Swedish history, a regular behavioral cue fills the gap. At 3 p.m. local time, across their offices, the teams break for fika, the Swedish tradition of the afternoon coffee break. In Sweden, the universal social institution is about taking time to socialize with one's work colleagues. But importing this behavior to New York City, it takes on an additional layer of meaning. One can imagine that even new interns will quickly understand that Faraday's Swedish origin includes valuing time to connect with others. Don't forget the biscuits.
Please don't.
So please don't. So what I like about that, what I think is actually, so yes, it's a great opportunity. You've got to like institute a regular, like articulate it, like we're going to actually do this thing that this is something. But I like what I think is so compelling is it tells a story about the history of the organization. And that's why I think it's
Mm.
so powerful. And that is why it's in the book. Rikki Goldenberg, let's move forward. That was 2018. We're now,
Wow.
I know, 2018, 29, whatever. It was a long time ago. Long
Wow.
time ago. Um, so let's bring it to today. You are observing a
Mm.
shift in employment, a shift in the behavior of organizations, how they hire, and because it is an employer market, is your sort of thesis here, and you believe there are downstream, this is your words, downstream effects that we haven't thought about and that we should be at the very least aware of so that we can predict how to engage and act with these kinds of the situation scenario that might be unfolding before us in kind of our
Mm.
new very modern world. Talk to me about what you're seeing.
So let's talk about it, which is that basically, and we see waves of this in general, right? Sometimes it's kind of an employees market, and they talk about the fact that employees are jumping around, they're jumping ship whenever they want a new job, and they don't have as much loyalty and legacy, and oh no, and we can't hold on to our employees, we have to pay them more and more and more. There's the beautiful example of Apple going to Google and being like, stop poaching our people, we'll stop poaching your people. And it's kind of working against that when it's an employee's market. But for so many reasons, it seems like we've shifted to a little bit more of an employer's market, right? Because of rise of AI, threats of recession, maybe we're currently in one, all kinds of global events occurring around us. A lot of organizations are currently in a position that they are reducing the amount of hires that they need to take on. They are reducing the pay that they're also going to offer those employees that they're going to take on.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of cutting any potential excess support or fat
Mm-hmm.
when really it's human lives that they're sort of cutting. And so, because of that, it's kind of creating some bad habits in the process of looking for new people, of joining new organizations and finding your right next move.
So
Hmm.
I'm always interested in this kind of tension that occurs between what you're saying, you're like trimming the fat, but these are
Mm,
humans. I mean, this is how capitalism works, right? For better or worse, is that if you're an organization and you can operate
mm,
successfully with less cost, then that is going to benefit you. And part of that is, the external pressure of, possibly of whether that's well, I guess whether it's a need to reduce the cost so that they can continue to make a profit, or that you have a new technological solution that's going to eliminate the need for, one out of every two people. That's their, isn't that, aren't they being good stewards of their own organization to be able to, um, if they can, they should. And that's their kind of right, and that's how that organization should run, is as efficiently as they can. Or are you saying there's something else beside that or behind
So
that?
it's a good question. And I think We're not, I mean, we could spend this entire time talking about capitalism, my feelings around it. Let's not. But what I was going to say is that I think the danger in that space that we're playing in is that oftentimes it's short-term gains, long-term losses,
Mm,
right? So you are saying, "Oh, I think I could do this with AI or this recruitment tool, and so we're going to cut the whole recruiting team and we're going to save so much money." But because not everything is necessarily measurable, you're going to run into different issues. Now that you lost those recruiters, here's a couple things that you should consider, right? You're using an AI tool that's missing out on incredible candidates who didn't know how to adapt a resume and cover letter to be read by an AI tool.
hmm
Or you're getting too many candidates that now, instead of a recruiter being able to screen it who understands the hiring manager's needs, that hiring manager now is taking away time from profit generating activities in order to review subpar candidates or people who aren't a good fit while missing out on other individuals, right? You're starting to miss out on opportunities in the long term impact. I think a lot of times, most organizations and corporations were chasing those quarterly goals or those
Yeah.
really tight KPIs.
Yeah.
Um, that happens everywhere, honestly. It's like, it's not as fun. It's not as sexy. We want to do the work that we can put in a press release.
Yeah.
And the downside is that it doesn't create sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said. I mean, the kind of ethos of a long time ago, I did a lot of work for HP, and it was the HP way. And when you were hired by HP, that was it. Like you, that was your career. Like you were there, and
Yeah,
there was a lot of institutional knowledge, a lot of consistency. Now you can say that there's a lot of inefficiency there, but there was a
absolutely.
benefit to being able to be stable and understand that. Okay, so we don't have control necessarily over that piece, but you're saying it's now we are because of external factors, there's a lot of um, forces conspiring to make it so that employers have more choice
Hmm.
than of whom they can hire. So
Yeah.
what is happening
And
if
they are
that
doing
is
some
the
crazy
case?
things.
What is happening because of it?
Well, I think a couple, I'm just going to tell you a couple stories.
I
Can I do
love
that?
stories. Yes.
Of things
Yes.
that have happened that I've gotten to watch. So they're anecdotal, right? I can't say, oh, this is the way that things are happening, but I can give you a couple
Yeah,
anecdotal
this is
stories, yeah?
all anecdote. Yeah, I live by anecdotes. That's great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, for example, I know someone who was interviewing with a top name organization. I'm not going to throw names out here. A top name organization. They went through the regular, 4 to 5 rounds, a pretty reasonable number of rounds for their level of seniority. There's someone who usually has about 100 direct reports below them, right? So a pretty significant choice if you want them to join your organization. They went through the 5 rounds, they did the case study, right? All that good stuff. At the end, the company said, wow, you've passed everything. We don't have a role for you, though.
What?
They never had a role for them. They
Well,
weren't, they had posted some people call these ghost roles. They had posted a role that didn't actually exist. And they were interviewing candidates to fill their bench with really high qualified, vetted, had gone through their corporate hiring process and had been deemed worthy of joining that organization. But because they didn't actually have that headcount, now maybe at some point they did and they did a reorg or some kind of hiring freeze, but they didn't stop their interview process. They basically said, amazing, you're absolutely qualified to join our team at this level, but we don't have any positions right now at that level. So your candidacy stays available for the next 6 months. And if one becomes available, it's a fast track to getting a position here.
that was a lot of effort on their part too. Because at first I was like, well, that's unfair. But like they put a lot of time and energy into that
Yeah,
too.
yes, it on both sides. Like it's kind of one of those things that you're like, you just did so many interviews to then try to keep someone warm for a possible future opening when you don't know. Your
here's
interview
I'm
now.
not okay, so I am okay with all of this except for the fact that they didn't disclose that was the case.
That is the issue of what we're discussing, right? If they had said at the start, listen, you're a really interesting candidate. We don't know if you're necessarily, if we have a position that's available for you right now, but you look so enticing. Our process is you come through, if you get approved, you get this like stamp of approval. We continue to shop you around for roles for the next 6 months, right? You basically have like a glowing recommendation from us. It's a fast track. Then that's different. Then we're having a really thoughtful, productive, strategic discussion. And that individual could also opt out. They could say, you know what, I'm only looking for an opportunity that's available in the next three
Yeah.
months. So this isn't the right fit. But instead, what they did was they took them through the whole dog and pony show to then say, thanks. I'm watching you think about this.
Yeah, it's yeah. Yeah, yeah. It is an interesting so
Because I,
because
what you
they're
are
like,
highlighting, I will say is like what you are highlighting is that that process is, if done with integrity and clear communication, actually fine, right? If I'm interested in a big name corporate
yeah,
organization and I'm
yeah.
super senior and I'm expensive to hire, it kind of makes sense that it should take me a
Hmm.
while and,
Hmm. Hmm.
puts me top of mind on your pile.
Yeah.
But you got to tell me that.
And so you're saying that because they have a lot of these folks
Hmm.
that they don't have to disclose that because they might lose these like the reason, and we don't know, like you
We don't
said,
know.
could have been a reorg, whatever,
Yep.
but let's say in this kind of hypothetical version of what our interpretation of this,
Yeah.
if they had disclosed that, then that she or he, your friend, may not have actually sat through this whole thing. They may have decided not to. So they held on to the power, right? The information,
Hmm.
there's an information gap, and they purposefully did it. Okay. All right. That's shitty. I mean, I have seen, many, I'm sure you have too, right? Like many reports of, I went through 8 rounds and then never heard back. I went through this many
Oh,
rounds and never
yeah.
heard back. So to me, this feels like the similar like category. And, or would you, let me ask you, would you say that kind of, again, anecdotal evidence, but I've seen it quite a bit of people going, I went through a gazillion interviews and then they just totally ghosted me, or like nothing ever happened. Is that part
I
of, is
think
this
these
a
are
similar
different.
thing?
I mean,
Okay.
they're both impactful in terms of a negative outcome, in terms of being a network, like a organizational issue. I think the example that I'm giving there is the problem there is you're trying to keep people warm
Yeah.
and you're also not
I
really interviewing for an
want to leave my
opportunity.
options open. I want to keep dating.
Kind of, yeah. It's a little bit like I want to date around. I'm not sure if you're quite right. And also, honestly, for the candidate, I actually think it puts them on the back foot as well, because even if I got that mark of approval, if an opportunity does become available at that organization 6 months from now, are you going to remember me or are you going to remember the latest person you interviewed? You're probably
Yeah.
going to have some recency bias
Yeah.
and think about the person that you just met, not me, who has
Yeah.
this gold star of approval from 6 months ago. Now, the example that you're giving in terms of like the 8 rounds and then I was
Yeah.
ghosted, I actually think those are two issues.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yes.
One is ghosting in general, right? We have suddenly decided that ghosting is appropriate. If you gave a candidate an offer and they just never got back to you,
Yeah.
it'd be kind of weird. Companies are doing the same thing. So, listen, if you've done an application and you don't get that cold auto reject and you don't get a reject at all, that's fine. But if I have talked to a hiring manager, if you talk to a recruiter, if you've done a case study,
Yeah.
then there should at least be an email
Yeah.
that says, "Hey, thank you so much for your time. You're not a fit at this time. Nobody gives feedback. We are not able to give feedback and da da da." Da." But there should be some kind of communication that says, "Hey, this is over."
Yeah. I
That
mean, I think it's a function of like, it's just a shit show, right?
I
Like the
think that's
whole
a
like,
function of, because you're cutting fat in little bunny ears.
yeah.
There's no one actually thinking about what should the hiring and onboarding process look like.
Right. And especially for people that you're not bringing on, who cares? Like it's not, I don't
Yes.
think it's an explicit, I would, and this is the, optimistic Josh, right? Like I don't think it's an explicit decision. It's just not important, right? Like, hey, what about the people that we're not hiring? Shouldn't we give them like it's polite, socially norm, right? Like you could
But I
create a good experience for these people.
and I think that's indicative of an employer's market because they're saying, I don't need to. Whereas
Hmm.
if you said, hey, we want to have good credibility,
Yeah. I don't
they'd
need, yeah.
say, yeah, actually, we should let them know so they
Well,
have a
there's
good
so
experience.
many people out there.
So that maybe
Who
they want to come
cares?
back. But they're like,
Yeah.
yes, because there's so many
Yeah.
people, I don't care. And
Yeah.
one complaint, it doesn't really matter. And we're
Yeah.
busy. And
There's
we
no
lost our
negative
entire recruiting
consequences.
team. And we don't
There's
have
no
an
neg
HR crew.
Exactly,
Do you know what I mean?
exactly.
And so
Yeah, yeah,
to me, it's like there's kind of a lack of decency. And maybe they're not doing it intentionally.
yeah.
But
I
I
mean,
got questions.
it's also a lack of decency. I would say the first case study. All right, what else? So give me some other examples of downstream effects of poor behaviors. I think this is
Hmm.
where you're headed
Yeah.
of an employer market. The
Okay,
employer
so
market as a whole.
I have a couple that I think about. Yeah.
Yeah.
One is that sour taste that we're creating. That hangs out. So let's say that individual who I gave the example of that they do get contacted by that big company and they say, "Hey, we do finally have a position for you." They're coming in a little salty,
Hmm.
right? Because of the lack of communication, because they feel like they kind of got dicked around. They're showing up already with a lower level of engagement and excitement about the organization. They didn't
Hmm.
feel desired.
Hmm.
You don't feel chosen,
Hmm.
right? You're coming in and you're sort of like, I guess we'll see what happens. I think that's
Hmm.
going to have downstream impact in terms of how do you perform at the organization. I think that's going to impact your trust, your
At least in the recruiting team.
absolutely. Um, Yeah, and I think that really, it sets the tone. It's the same as anyone who's had this example, which is also happening because, we're cutting fat and it's an employer's market and they're sort of like, you should be lucky to have a job when you join us. There's really also a lack of onboarding, which means that you're losing a lot of that institutional knowledge. There are people showing up to the first day and people are like, who are you? What are you doing here? What team are you on? Right? There's no thought around it. So you show up and you kind of feel like just a number.
Wouldn't it be if you have
Mm,
less people? Okay, so let's extrapolate this.
I love it.
Wouldn't every person you hire become more important? I mean, wouldn't I guess the ideal would be if you have fewer people. I mean, mm, maybe it is this sort of like, I guess there's two potential situations, right? One where it's like you are cutting out of um force, you're panicking, and one is out of like cutting out of like being proactive and like
Mm.
doing things in a forward looking manner, right? So
Oh,
the
I wish
first
that was
case,
happening.
right. I think it could, right? So the first case is like, who are you? Like, what's going on? Like, you just don't have the resources. No one's thinking about that, right? Of course, that's a problem. And so you and I are saying, look, we need, someone to be thinking about the employee experience. And
Mm.
these organizations are like, fuck, like we're trying to just make the quarters numbers, right? Like, so that's
Yeah.
one. And the other example is if you're maybe a small company starting up, coming up now, or you are one that is on the front foot and successful and looking to reinvent themselves, and you are going to be like rethinking and rejiggering, reorg, right? It's a reorg,
Hmm.
and you're going to bring in, for every person that you're bringing in, it's going to be each person is going to be more important, and you're going to want to invest in those people because they have like more impact per
Mm.
person, right? Like that's almost kind of the case. So maybe I'm saying maybe my what I'm kind of coming at is like, hey, if you're cutting, like you still need to have some infrastructure, some human infrastructure around bringing those people on because you're going to want them up and running more quickly and they're going to have more impact. So you've got to invest in those people. Like that's in order to maximize those human beings, in order to like make sure that they're the right person in the right role with the right information. You gotta be thinking about at the very least the onboarding.
Yes. And I think that that's one of the things that first of all, let's be real. So hard to do right.
Yeah,
Onboarding in general is so difficult.
yeah,
And because it doesn't have necessarily strong KPIs tied to it, right? You can't say, oh, because we've changed these things in the onboarding experience and you can't
yeah,
measure it. It's
yeah.
sort of one of those easy things to cut. You're like, we don't need
There's
these
the
types
indirect,
of services.
it's an indirect benefit. Can you make a case for? And you're
It's
like,
really
well,
difficult.
it's hard. Yeah,
But I think that you can kind of look at some of the metrics around it, which is in terms of how long are people staying? What does your matriculation look like? How much does it cost you to get new people coming in? And again,
yeah,
this is another example that because when you start cutting roles or cutting services and opportunities, you're like, look, we're saving this money on external recruiters, but you're not calculating the hourly rate of your current employees,
yeah,
spending time on all of those
yeah,
recruiting,
yeah,
onboarding,
yeah.
interviewing, hiring activities that they're now spending on that rather than profit generating activities.
And
Right? It's like,
by the
I'm
time
watching you
those
shake your
things,
head. I'm like,
yeah, by the
yeah,
time those
that's
things
an
show
issue.
up, right? Like the time those things show up, it's like it's too late and you don't know why, and
Mhm.
it's like, what happened here?
Well, I also, this is just like taking a big step to the side. I think one of the other issues when we're in this employer's market is, first of all, yeah, you're doing like 13 rounds of interviews because you don't know what you want, because you haven't slowed down to clarify what you need
Right.
and worked with
Yeah,
people to
of
sort of be
course.
like, this is actually what we're looking. It's a lot of, I know it when I see it. And you're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, this is an
Yeah.
insane waste
Yeah,
of
yeah,
time for
yeah,
everybody.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But the
yeah.
other thing that I think happens in that situation is that because you're in an employer's market, you are often, and you're making singular hires, you're missing out on finding individuals that will challenge the organization. I think what you end up getting a lot of the time is you're going to find people that you're like, they'll slot in perfectly because I don't have time
Yeah.
for onboarding,
That's
because
right.
I sort of want someone who looks like me,
Yep.
who talks like me, who
Yep.
comes from where I know, you
Yep.
start bringing in people who
The
kind of think
efficient
the exact same way as you and kind of look
e-
exactly the same as you. And because you don't want to sponsor visas anymore because that's expensive and you don't have to because you already have other candidates, you're missing out on diversity of thought, approach, skill set. And that's going to have long-term impact.
it's I feel like
I feel like
you
you're
know,
having feelings around
yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, there is
Remember
this
when I was like, I want to talk about this?
there's this yeah, I mean so I again, it's like there are those organizations, and I just feel for the people that are just like constantly underwater. And it's like shit is moving so quickly, and you've got to deliver on these things, and you're just like, and it's like there's no other option. I don't have time, right? There's
Mm,
that kind of organization. And
yeah.
I think ultimately they're going to suffer, and they are going to lose out to the organizations that are more thoughtfully, smaller, like smaller orgs that are leveraging AI, et cetera, remote
Mm,
employees, whatever it is. Those I mean, the ability of those organizations that are creating value in a way that is more productive or what I don't want. I have a couple threads that I'm chasing down. Okay. So what I don't want is for organizations to change and do the reorg and try to save money by onboarding by using more AI, and then the person left is then still overwhelmed,
hmm
right? Like what I hope to see is an organization that is using AI in a way to make them so that they're less overwhelmed, so that they can be more thoughtful about the human elements of this experience of like you're cutting maybe the premise here is that you're cutting the wrong things, right? Like
Oh yeah.
I think that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah. I think we're doing a lot of that right now.
What other, so let's push it then further. What other downstream effects, what other poor behaviors are you observing in this market?
Okay, besides the fact that your company is going to start looking too similar to itself, right? You're starting to hire people that just look like you.
Yep.
Um, and also you're going to get less engaged individuals who are coming to your organization because they already feel like they had to battle their way in and they weren't really even desired. Just some small issues. I also think that when you start to remove the human element, you're going to miss out on the possibility of hiring too quickly and hiring people who know how to game the system and don't
Yeah.
know how to do the work.
Yep.
That is happening a whole lot, right? There's like subreddits of being overemployed and people taking multiple jobs. There was that
Yep.
huge viral thing that just happened recently about the engineer who was working for like 20 YC startups. They were
Oh
like,
wow, I
what
didn't
is
see
happening?
that. Yeah.
I don't think they were really doing any work, but they were working at all of them at the same time. But that is also happening, right? Is that in a world where it's this employer's market and it's really hard to break in, a lot of people are kind of being instructed to adapt their resume in a certain way that's going to get through the AI tools,
Absolutely.
right? And they're using AI in the interview to answer questions in a way that's going to make sense. And
Yeah.
people aren't doing the reference checks that they
Yeah.
need to be doing. And so now you're getting people that are joining your organization who don't really know how to do what they need to be able to do. And they're hoping that AI is going to help them do it behind the scenes without anyone realizing that they don't know what they're doing. So I think
And
that might be a small issue as well.
the um yeah, so okay, so there's the front edge of that where
Hmm.
where people are gonna game the system and enter and then be underqualified and unable
Hmm.
to do the job. And that'll go on for whatever, a reasonable amount of time to cause problems. And
Yeah.
then there's the folks that you could do it, but are left behind because they are not willing to or don't understand how to game the system.
Yeah.
How do we not game the system? Like, how do we create a, so it's like, I mean, I've had multiple conversations, but I'm reflecting on one from maybe 6 months ago about this, you know, you have this recruiting software and it's, you know, it like there's just so many people that it's like you just get flooded, right? So how do you deal with a flood of that? You got to have there's no way that any one human is going to look at 1,000 resumes, right? So it's like you this is a downward spiral and I think going back to our earlier point, you're never going to hear back from it. Like the only way that you get any sort of response, and maybe this is hyperbole, but it feels accurate, or at least it feels the story, the kind of the essence of it feels correct, which is like you have to know somebody that's going to actually make an introduction, which is also a shitty way to do it because then you get that similarity bias and
Hmm.
but that is the only way that it's gonna because other it's like so I think there's two. I think the quality of the employee is going down from two angles,
Hmm.
right? It's burning on both ends of the candle, to misuse a metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tricky.
What then? I know that you don't have answers,
I don't.
but let's consider, since we're focusing on this hiring aspect, like
Mm.
what is the right let's make sure we ask the right question, right? Like the how might we in an
Mm.
environment of AI tools and organizations that are struggling to keep up and intense and market driven, like when's the next product release, pop 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 pop. How might we start to like bring, how might an organization identify and bring in the right people that can do the right job and that can do the job well, and it's even more important because we just said it's like there's fewer people theoretically in this future scenario where they're going to be, have more impact, right? So it's like who's the right person and how do you do it and how do you do it respectfully,
Mm.
right? Like that's so you don't waste people's time. And like what is this new kind of, because you're kind of battling against the tech, aren't you? I don't know.
You are, but I think that one of the things you highlighted earlier is this idea of how do you engage with the tech as a companion, as a partner, versus
Yeah.
as the solution. And so
Mm.
I think that's where we start with, right? Is instead of thinking of AI and these recruiting tools as the solution, we think of it as a partner, right? So to me, I'm immediately like, oh, we should be double diamonding stuff
Yeah.
here, which
Right.
is we should always be doing a double diamond. Get a double diamond up in here. No, I'm just kidding. But to me, there is something about this. Like one of the things that I would say that's going to help you is if we can increase specificity and awareness of what we're looking for in that candidate. Right? So many descriptions that we're seeing out there are kind of you can't really figure out exactly what they're looking for. They aren't really
Yeah.
clear on what they need. I'm not saying this is the solution.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
saying is that
It's a step in the process. Like we need that part.
yes. To me, it's like if we can think about AI and these tech tools as being a companion and a partner, to me, it's about recognizing, okay, we need to get clear on what kinds of people do we need. Yeah, we don't even know. Let's figure out what kind of level, what kind of skill set, and that we could use some AI to try to
Yeah.
figure that out. We could try
Absolutely.
to think
Yep.
about
Yep.
what are we missing? What are the gaps that are looking for?
Yep.
What types
Yep.
of people have these skills? What level of expertise are we looking? Yeah. Now we can narrow in. So, what do we actually need in our team in this time for the next 12 months? Not just
Yep.
this next quarter, for the next 12 months. How do we want to grow? What are the numbers of people? What are the goals of the organization? And then we can go back out and we can use AI and Companion as well. And we can say, all right, this is what we're looking for. Who can fit this? And we can write a better job description. We can
Yeah.
be more explicit about our interview process. So it's not 15 rounds, it's 5 rounds. Because if you don't know in 5 rounds, you don't know what you want.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you're using the round. I mean, I think we already hit this, right? You're using the rounds to figure it out. So do the work ahead of time. It
Hmm.
is lazy. It's lazy
Yeah.
just to put up. So,
Yes.
mm,
And you could do the work ahead of time. You could put up a job description, but I would argue instead you might want to have your team go and talk to people and understand. I mean, in the same way that you do design research. Before you
yeah,
say, I need this specific thing, let's go out and
we
find out.
candidate research, role
Yeah.
research. Yes. I mean, that's a whole nother project, and if we're underwater, that's a lot. But I mean, it is the right thing, right? Like we are like idealists, right? I feel like you and I are
We're
like we're
idealizing
like
because
prototyping
We're
what it might
idealizing
look
because
like.
I'm playing with the idea of the long-term impact. Each
That's
person
right.
that you bring in that isn't the right fit, not only is it expensive and costly to have brought them in and then to have to get rid of them, that's complicated and difficult and opens you up to a whole can of worms and discomfort. But also, you can bring in some poisonous individuals.
Yeah.
And if your organization is small and it's an organism, and let's say it's 100 people and we're going to 150,
Yeah.
yeah, you're like, oh, it's
You
not that
could,
big. That
yeah.
is massive growth.
Yeah.
Those 50 people could change the way that your company looks. And
Yeah.
so if you start
Yeah.
bringing in 10 underqualified, terrible individuals, what's your company going to look like?
TLDR, don't try to shortcut the process at the front, right? Like you're
No.
don't try to save time with this employment piece. It's like you're getting these like you have to hire, we need this for the next da 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 da. And what I think you and I are walking around, this idea that we're walking around is like this actually, if you're doing this in the right way and you're thinking about someone that is going to be able to provide the kind of value that your team needs today and tomorrow for problems that you don't even know are going to show up.
Yeah.
You, as the team working with the hiring managers, need to do this research, and you need to define it. And if you can provide a sharp description in a way that isn't just a bunch of skills, then I think you're going to at least blunt the people who are going to try to game the system, because you're going to
Yeah.
make it very specific, and you're going to know the persona. You're going to know the kind of person that you're looking for. And then you can be very deliberate with what you put out in the world.
Yeah.
And that I think you can easily sort. Maybe not easily. That I think is possible to sort, right? As opposed to like some sort of like how many years? Yes, 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 da, 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 da.
Yeah. Yes. And I think that it also, the way I think about this is I'm not trying to avoid efficiency. I think I should make that clear. Like, I want your organization, both and the hiring, the recruiting, the hiring, the onboarding, the continuing to employ and professional development and growth. I want that to be efficient, right? You don't want to be in tons of meetings that you don't know what the point is and what are we trying to do. The complexity is in a capitalistic society. I think a lot of times we're looking at, and sometimes it's because of the nature of the organization, right? We need to hit some kind of target. We're not profitable yet. That's a different situation. We can talk about it. But ultimately, a lot of times what we're doing is we're trying to get to like tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we're looking for quick efficiency, and I'm putting a lot of bunny ears around that, rather than thinking about long-term strategic growth.
Mm. So we're going right back to the very first thing we stumbled on, which is you're making decisions. Like,
Hmm.
be clear about what is driving your decision making and what time frame we're talking about.
Hmm.
Is it short term, quarterly? And you can make those decisions. That is part of
Absolutely.
being an organization, as part of being responsible to your stakeholders and your shareholders and all that stuff. But understand that not every decision, every short-term decision is going to be a good long-term decision. And in fact, many short-term decisions or many decisions that are driven by short-term needs are counter to the benefit of a long-term.
I mean, there's incredible statistics around the amount that senior leadership should be spending on long-term strategy and the amount of time that they are spending on long-term strategy. They're not the same.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense, right? You're dealing with being a senior leader means you're dealing with fires left and right, and you're just trying to push them out, and you're just trying to handle what's right in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly.
It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that is going to be the we're going to wrap up the conversation right there. Rikki Goldenberg, amazing to talk to you. ICF certified executive leadership and career coach. You can learn more about Rikki at rikkigoldenberg.com. That was super, super interesting, and it's just another great conversation that I have enjoyed having with you. Thank you for coming on Great Mondays Radio.
Thanks for having me.